But what that really taught us, like, there's actually a massive demand for interaction at the home. I call it home engagement, home pickup, home drop off. Just like when you were talking to Scott at Spiffy, people want services at their house.
I'll take you a step further. People don't want services at their house. People don't want to waste time.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
What's up, everyone? This is Car Dealership Guy. You're listening to the Car Dealership Guy podcast, which is my effort to give you access to the most unbiased and transparent insights into the car market. Let's get into today's episode. Kevin Malik is CEO of RunBuggy, an online marketplace that connects car shippers and car haulers. Imagine you buy a car online, you need to get it shipped to your home. Kevin solves that with an easy online solution. In this conversation, we discussed the nuts and bolts of automotive transport, cracking the cold start problem for an online marketplace, how RunBuggy makes money, and the concerning economic indicators that Kevin is exposed to. But before we dive into the show, theft is plaguing dealerships nationwide. Losing car keys is an unneeded cost, and searching for keys can lead to bottlenecks in the sales process. Keeper Systems has the solution for dealers. The Keeper MX is the #1 key control solution in the auto industry, handling millions of transactions per day. It features a 16-gauge steel cabinet with a built-in camera and a puck lock for additional safety, along with many other features so that dealers can know who took a key, when, and why. Keeper Systems has been in the auto industry for over 40 years and is in over 12,000 dealerships, offering exclusive key control for 6 out of 10 biggest automotive groups in the world. They have a wide range of products that fit the needs of franchise dealers, independent dealers, and even the smallest pre-owned lots. New customers can take advantage of my partnership with Keeper Systems right now to receive an exclusive discount. All you need to do is visit keepersystems.com, click on the Car Dealership Guy link, and fill out the form to receive 25% off your first key machine purchase. Or if you prefer to call, just mention Car Dealership Guy to receive your discount. Keepersystems.com, KEYPER systems.com. Kevin Malik, welcome to the CDG podcast. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming on. I want to get right into the nitty gritty. Was looking through your background a bit and found it a bit surprising that you went from the hospitality industry into this logistics tech. Can you walk us through that? Like your background, how did you get started? How did this all happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of steps in there. I think that was probably the longest kind of tenure I had, but really always grew up in the tech space, right? Started my career with Accenture, left there pretty quick to start an SAP consulting firm, joined Starwood Hotels when there was less than 100 hotels. When I left, there was 1,100. So I had the fortunate experience of seeing massive scale and what was kind of even a little bit startup-y, right? And growing from, 30, 40 hotels to, like I said, 1,100. So learned quite a bit, helped grow everything from the technology side, work with the executive team, and I think really cut my teeth on global scale, finance, venture capital, all of that, right? Reported dotted line up to the CFO.
Got it. You did that while at Starwood?
Yeah. So
what do you mean? So what do you say like venture capital there? How did that play in there?
So, you think about it, it's probably more, I'd probably say closer to private equity, right? As we grew, right, from a company that eventually acquired Sheraton, launched the Westin brand and had only a few hotels, there was a lot of acquisitions. There was a lot of discussions around capital raises. And I mostly cited it from a technology perspective, right? How are we going to scale things? How are we going to service our back office? And so while I wasn't actually actively, helping the finance team, it was listening and learning kind of in the early formative years of my career.
What's it like working for Barry Starling? What is that like?
So it was interesting, right? So Barry's I
like the smile.
Yeah,
I'm ready for this
one.
one.
I didn't spend a lot of time with him. I spent time with his team, obviously, right? But out of Greenwich, Connecticut. Actually, yesterday I was wearing a Starwood Capital shirt. One of my good friends still works there.
Yeah.
Incredibly dynamic, right? And I was probably too young to realize what I had, right? Started there in my late 20s, and I won't say how old I am now, but probably double that. And it was really interesting, right? I really appreciated the attention to the detail, the design, but also just get it done mentality, right? Let's not do analysis paralysis. Let's grow. And the end product, which was could be a new Westin, could be the Phoenician, and just amazing to see the growth, right? And I think obviously he's gone on to be one of the most successful real estate investors in the world. So I think that tells you what kind of organization it was.
Yeah, definitely a good place to get started. So what came after that?
Yeah. So, after that, I decided hey, I want to try this fancy thing called a startup, right? I joined a few guys that were building a data center company in Phoenix, Arizona. And, I was working in the data center. I was helping, build things for Starwood and get things going. And this is really before the advent of cloud, right? I mean, to date myself, I remember getting my first phone, which was a BlackBerry, and looked at, put in my drawer, and that was the end of that, right? And these guys had this notion they were building one of the largest data centers in the world. I joined them as CIO. Spent about 4.5 years there. They went on to raise about 600 million in capital. Actually, I think they did held the record for the most amount of venture capital and debt raised in Arizona at the time. So another high scale, fast paced growth. Really learned, grew from, I think it was employed 35 to 500. Built the software, built the team out, and spent 4.5 years there. After that, went on to do some venture partner work. Worked actually with the chairman of MasterCard in the startup in London, working on IoT, and then bounced around quite a bit doing consulting work, support work, and came across this idea. These three founders are still involved today. They've got a product. It's MVP. They ship cars for a couple clients, and they do predominantly Southern California. I took a look at it and I said, this is really interesting, right? Before all this, I bought a car and bring a trailer. Right. And I'm like, I didn't know how to get it to me. And I dialed and I said, wait, you mean
so you're really a car guy?
Oh, yeah. I'm afraid, actually. I'm afraid that I might start talking about
You're
EVs.
more than me, I got to tell you. Yeah, you're more than me.
If we start about EVs, I feel like Steve Greenfield will pop up, Scott will pop up, and I'll get yelled at by one of them.
I'll be curious to hear your take there, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So, they had this idea, and I said, this is fascinating. This is about, Q3 of 2018, right? And they opted to make
Q3 of 2018.
Yeah.
Okay, and now at this point, the company is live, or is it still like being
live,
incubated?
Right? There's a couple customers, right? There's a handful of transporters, a couple hundred cars a month being transported.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think at that time, the first thing that came to my mind is like Uber. How did Uber not capitalize on this opportunity? I know they have like Uber Freight and all that, and we can get into that soon as well. But Q3 2018, I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, that's right around the period where Uber had a bunch of shakeup with management and stuff. But just kind of walk me deeper through that. This seems like such a simple idea, right? So practical. So it just makes so much sense. It seems like food delivery to me. It's like, yeah, obviously, if we need to get a car shipped, we're not going to do this manually by phones or email. Like, it's going to be done through an app.
Yeah.
How did you guys wedge into the market? Or the founders and then you? Yeah.
It seems like a simple concept, right? And in the gray hair tells a little bit of a different story.
Well, to be clear, the concept is simple. The business, I'm sure, is very sophisticated,
the concept
complicated.
is super simple, right? I think people say, oh, you're a lot like Uber, you're a lot like Lyft, or maybe Uber Freight, Convoy. But let's put it this way, where you generally have a marketplace and you have someone that is going to get a ride or moving an object, right? Shipping or food delivery, it's usually within a city, right? Or if you are Convoy Uber Freight, you're going from port to a major distribution hub or distribution hub to another distribution hub or store of that nature. As we started doing this, we realized that I might ship a car from my house to your house. I might ship it from a dealership to an auction to port to auction. I'm going to fast forward here, but now in the last 18 months, we've covered 125,000 unique addresses, shipping cars, right? And it gets more and more complex.
I'm one of them.
You are one of them. Yeah, I've seen that, right? And so I think the thing that was really exciting, so we built this software, right? And we thought, hey, we're a startup. Every book we read on startups and everything, we're going to start in Southern California. And we're going to do this in Southern California, and we're going to perfect it. And we're going to launch, slowly go from city to city. Then comes along one of our first big customers, and I'll mention here, was Toyota Financial Services and Fair, right? This is 2019. And they're like, well, we can't just ship cars in Southern California. Who cares? They got to go everywhere, right? And so how do you start a marketplace across the United States? That was the hard part.
Yeah, the cold start problem. So tell me about that.
It was a lot of phone calls, right? It was a lot of, can you move this car? Can you do it? Who are you? Are you a broker? Do you have technology? You can't just build a marketplace across the United States overnight. It was trying to price, trying not to lose money, trying to find someone to pick up the car, and while building what has become the most robust platform in the middle of it. So extremely difficult.
But when you say started, like, so what did you actually do, right? Did you pick up the phone, call some major dealer groups like, hey, I know you're shipping cars, use us, here's why? Like, how
Yep.
did that actually work?
Yeah.
And my assumption is that you went after businesses first before consumers, because it seems like an easier distribution channel to crack.
Yeah,
But that's my
absolutely. We,
guess.
we 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 went to businesses first, right? There's repetitive routes there. There's higher volume, and it was a little bit like, hey, we have this little MVP software. We are, this is where I think we were really smart. But we're a mixture of automotive guys, right? If you look at my executive team, a lot of them spend a lot of time at Toyota, at lenders. We have a very very skilled technology team and a skilled operations team. Give us some of your business, let us try it with our software and see how it goes, right? Like any good startup, it was a little bit of salesmanship, it was a little bit, I'll say, a little bit of begging.
What was the value proposition though? Why would I use you, right? Your early stage, like, why the heck would I use you?
Even at that point, we still had software that gave you an interface that let you look at everything, let you enter things. And this is beginning of 2019, right? If you look today, it's most like, hey, call us, we'll give you a quote, then we will send you an email when it's done. There's this clamoring for logistics, especially automotive logistics, to be part of the supply chain, right? Let us flow information directly into the software and spread it out to the marketplace. So we didn't want to go out and say, hey, we'll do it faster, we'll do it cheaper. That's part of the sales pitch sometimes, right? But it was really, let us hook into your system, let us have communication back and forth, and let us feed your systems upstream so you know where your asset is at all times.
How early did the founders bring you in? It just feels like you started what you're telling me right now. I hear the words MVP, and to think that you came in so early, it seems like such a risky move by founders, and I commend them for that because clearly it's worked out tremendously, and you've done a great job. But like, how did that work to bring in someone so early? Like, walk me through that.
So I think these guys did a phenomenal job in the sense that they got their initial funding, right, and I was part of that discussion, and they realized that, hey, if we want to make this very large company, we want to ship hundreds of thousands of cars, there has to be a substantial investment in technology, right? We also have to be able to talk to corporate executives. We also have to be able to deal with individuals and dealers and bring the value up, right? It's really easy to say, hey, we built an app. That's not hard, right?
Yeah.
It is one thing to have a legal department. It's another thing to have insurance. It's another thing to raise money. It's another thing to develop the cybersecurity programs around all of this, right? And so I think they were, forward thinking enough that like, hey, let's stay involved. Let's do what we do, which is
Yeah, it's
help.
going to be a
And
real company.
yeah,
It's going to be a real company, and we need someone to run it properly.
yeah, and we're here 140 people today now.
So you mentioned raising money. Tell me more about that. Was it you that sort of steered the company towards venture capital? Why did you do that? Did you raise the money yourself? Can you kind of explain that to us a little
Yeah,
bit?
so we got the initial seed funding from All My Capital, large dealership group out of Southern California, and that was how we got our product going. That's in early
And
2019.
is this the founder's dealership?
No, the founders do not have dealerships. This is
So
a
what's the connection? Yeah.
they just happened to come across this group that they were selling to. So they were selling the product to a dealer,
Ah.
and this is the dealership group that I knew, and that's how we got involved, and that's the initial funding.
Oh, okay, got it. Oh, I like that. Okay, so the customer invested. That's a great way to do it. And it's a huge testament. Okay, so that's a first round. What about like later capital, more institutional
Yeah,
capital?
so as we started to get traction, and I think there's a little bit of a story to tell here. What really made it so
Yeah.
going into 2019, 2000, Q1 20, the pandemic hits, and we're like, as a startup, like what are we going to do? Everything's closed, the dealership's closed. No one's going to buy a car, and we had been talking to a couple of lenders, right? In particular, BMW Financial Services, Toyota Financial Services, and we got a call, and they said, "Hey, can you pick up cars from people's homes?" Like, well, what are you talking about? They said, "Well, the dealerships are closed, and we have lease terminations coming up." Lease termination is I have a
Genius.
Camry, right? And I'm going to drop it off at the dealer because it's up. And individuals said, well, we don't want to keep it, even if you extend it, because we're not driving anywhere. I don't want the payment. So we're like, startup, sure, we'll do it.
Wow. Talk about timing.
Timing, right? So, but what that really taught us, like, there's actually a massive demand for interaction at the home. I call it home engagement, home pickup, home drop off. Just like, when you were talking to Scott at Spiffy, people want services at their house. And so we started to build the team.
I'll take you a step further.
Yeah.
People don't want services at their house. People don't want to waste time.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And it could be at their house. It could be at their office. It could be come to
Yeah,
me. Right.
that's true. Yeah.
And I think what was really interesting, that started to build our capabilities and quickly. So talk about the cold start problem. How do you cover home addresses anywhere in the United States, anywhere, and move them to a dealer, right? So we started to build tech around that, right? In 2020, we launched what we call today's Winton.
Is that like IBM Watson's cousin or something?
Winton? Actually, that's Watson, right?
I know.
But the first guy, the guy credited with the horse and buggy trailer was Winton.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Man, we're on a roll over here. Spiffy with the Penguin, Winton, RunBuggy.
I got a lot of names.
We're setting the bar very high.
So that also led us to having conversations with the Bring a Trailer team. Huge fan. I bought another car, Bring a Trailer, right? And I sent an email. I said, hey, it'd be nice if I could ship this. And, we made our connection to Randy, the CEO there, who I consider just an amazing individual, right? If you ever have a chance to meet him, amazing individual. And he made the time for us. I can only imagine, everyone wants to talk to him. And to this date, they still have the most sophisticated, robust integration there is.
With
RunBuggy, right? They put a lot of time and energy and effort into this. It is completely seamless to check out. It's automatic pricing. It's part of your experience. It is truly like what you'd expect from an Amazon experience.
So how did this work prior to RunBuggy, right? Like 2017, I'm buying a car on eBay Motors or wherever, right? I don't know if Bring a Trailer was, launched in 2017. Maybe they were, but what was this like as a consumer, and what is it like now?
So I still think, even though we've made progress and I'll call it the competition, it's still the same because the market is so big. And what do I mean by that? It is still, if you go out and you ask me when you're in the industry, right? So you know guys that maybe ship a car, or you can maybe ask them to ship a car. But if you go to the average person, or, I'll call it 99% of the population, say, how do you ship a car? Or how does a car get shipped? No one knows. How do I ship a car? If I ask you right now, what would you do if you didn't know me? What would you do to ship a car from your house to Scottsdale?
I would call up my GM and tell him, hey, who do we know? Who do we use to ship cars?
And he would go through,
and he would find
someone, right? It's still like that. It's like that across the board, right? And even at the new car level, like they have fixed carriers that do a phenomenal job. There's still deviations. They still have to go find someone, right? I encourage you, we think, like I said, we think 50 million cars a year are shipped, and it's growing. There's no dominant player. There's no one major brand.
But how do you aggregate that all on your platform?
Yeah.
Like, do you have like a database of callers, or because it seems like, a lot of these people, great people, but they don't seem like the most sophisticated. I've interacted with some haulers, and again, I don't want to speak for the entire market, just, certain haulers I've interacted with, obviously it's more blue collar. And, when you're talking about apps and all this stuff, like, again, I spoke about this on the Scott Wingo podcast. Like, I'm a mechanic. I want to turn wrenches. Don't let me start doing all this app stuff. That's not what I want to do. If I wanted to do that, I would go learn software engineering.
Yeah.
So how do you go ahead?
So it's a really good question, right? So one of the things is we approached the large shippers first. And we said, hey, we have a phenomenal platform. We can integrate through APIs. We can securely take it. You get all your reporting through the platform free. We have full service claims and everything.
Got it.
And then we have an app for the drivers. What are the driver incentives? We don't charge them, but we allow them to take pictures. We allow them to pick up whatever loads that they want. We allow them to be their own business. They also get paid within 1 or 2 days. We go out and build a shipper in net 15, net 30. So they are literally running their book of business. We also work on behalf of them and say, hey, we see you have an open spot. Do you want another car along the way? So we keep the trucks full.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's good. You're bringing, that's a lot of value right there. Yeah.
Backhaul. Hey, I'm driving back from LA to New York. Do you have anything? Or they look on the platform, better yet, and like, this is in Kansas City. I'll pick it up. Instead of driving all the way back empty, I've got something to take back. There is a challenge with the number of drivers out there, but there's also a major challenge with optimization, keeping trucks full, right? Drivers
Yeah.
can't drive 24 hours a day. They've got a logbook. They've got to adhere to the logbook, right? What we can't afford is empty spots and empty trucks.
What's a logbook?
So there's a regulation, right? How many hours can you drive? And
Oh,
so
I see what you're
they're
saying.
just like a commercial driver, right? You can't drive too many hours, and I think that's key. So you can't say, hey, you might have a team of drivers. I'm going to pay more, get that car to me fast. Like, hey, I only can drive so many hours in a day.
Mhm. What's the so I know some companies, I see like under ads, like, hey, you get to come home every day. Like, what's the deal there? Like, how do they do that?
Well, I
Is it just
think
like the major nationwide corporations that have so many like spokes that they're able to, give you shorter hauls, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. They're doing inner city. Like we do a lot of inner city work. Hey, it's
Mhm.
30, 40, 50, even a couple hundred miles. Guy will go a couple of miles, come back. But what is really I think unique about automotive transport, just like I think we were discussing earlier, is it's all over the United States, right? So if we talk about right individuals, you talk about moving a car, you talk about bringing a trailer, you talk about any of these things, you don't know where the order is going till you get it, and you don't know what state to what state it's going from. It's extremely complex. So we have 17,000 drivers signed up on the platform right now,
Wow.
and out of every order that comes in, between 80 to 85% of them go claimed, meaning a driver sees on his phone and picks up that order without us getting involved.
So how do you make money? The magic
So
question.
I think again, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's a lot like Uber, right? We will charge the shipper one number, and we'll pay the transporter another number. I will say this isn't a game of marking things up two times, half a time. It's a low margin game, and we're going for scale.
What are the typical margins?
Margins are probably between 10 to 15% on this.
And is that gross?
Yeah.
Got it.
So we'll move, right? Like I said, we'll move in 2024. We'll move, we think well over a couple 100,000 cars.
Got it. So, if I'm spending $1,000 on a transport, you're making roughly 150 gross.
Yep,
I mean, I'll take that. I think that's fair.
that's
You
fair.
you hooked me up with the transporter. You made my life easy. I don't have to pick up the phone, waste time. I'll take it.
Yeah,
I mean, clearly I used it, but
you'll take it, and you recover insurance, right? We make sure the driver has insurance. You have tracking links. You can engage with a transporter. It's on your phone. We run 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. You don't have to pay the guy in cash. You can put it in your credit card. If you're a dealer, we can bill you later. It's truly, I call it like a modern
great.
experience. What you expect from anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time I heard about you, I was skeptical. I think it was someone at the dealership was looking to use, RunBuggy for some, out of state sales. And I was skeptical just because, we're business people. The first thing that goes to our mind is like, how do I disintermediate this middleman for my business?
Yeah.
But then you realize that they're actually bringing value, and you're like, okay, well, maybe it actually makes a lot of sense because it's saving me time, and my team is spending less time. And so the psychology cycle I went through, or whatever it's called, when I first heard
It
about it, but
is.
it's
I think everyone has that initial thought. Like I know a guy that will go down to from Pittsburgh, New York, not a problem. Then all of a sudden you're selling a car and it needs to go to Wisconsin. You're like, I don't know anyone, right? And you start calling and you get different prices and you don't know who to trust. And then there's cash on delivery. And so also you're like, I don't want to do this, right? And you realize that you're not saving any money, right? We have that epiphany moment with a lot of dealer groups.
and in terms of markets you're serving, you're all over the country.
Yeah, we cover even Alaska and Hawaii now, right? So we're cover all of the country. We, like I said, I think we probably have the most diverse delivery network. And what do I mean by that? A lot of people will move from dealer to port or marshaling yard. We're doing a couple thousand unique addresses every couple of weeks.
Hmm. How much funding have you raised in total?
Yeah, so we've raised 47 million in funding today, and I think we were going down this road and we started to talk. But what led to the kind of bring a trailer on these things was our Series A, right? So Series A was in it's public information, was led by the Larry H. Miller family, and then we had Hearst Ventures and Porsche all participate. So great group of people, and we purposely kept it really focused on automotive because it's when you start talking about off lease, you start about repo and finished vehicle logistics and dealers and auction. There's a lot of domain knowledge that comes to this. And there's a lot of, I think, bespoke information, and how it served us really well is kind of on the tail end of COVID. You saw massive inventory shortages, right? So one of the things is sometimes I feel like we're a little bit like a leading indicator, or maybe we're a trailing indicator, but we saw a massive drop in repo off lease, because what happened is, let me put it this way: if you were going to take a Forerunner to a dealership, do you think it was going to go to auction 2 years ago? Unless it was on two wheels and not running, you probably would keep it and sell it. So none of those cars went to auction. So we saw a massive reduction in off-lease volume, but it's slowly starting to come back as inventory comes back. I think we're seeing also more demand for transport in general as the EV makers ramp up production.
So you mentioned leading indicators. I actually wrote this down in my notes. You're transporting, you're obviously, ahead of the consumer here. What are you seeing right now? What is the data telling you in terms of transport? What are you seeing?
Yeah. So, I think this is pretty common knowledge. We're seeing a pretty big uptick in repossessions.
Really?
And yes, that's
so like partners that you're working with, that, lenders or whatever, you're just serving more business for them?
Yeah. So as a car goes from a repo yard to an auction, we're moving those for a lot of lenders, right? We're coordinating when the car is available. We're coordinating to taking it to the auction. So we're seeing a dramatic uptick there.
What do you say dramatic uptick? Can you put some numbers behind that?
Yeah, I think this is just for the business that we do, right? We're seeing it grow about 5% every month.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what is there specific regions, or is this nationwide?
It's nationwide, right? We can't tell. Sometimes the car ends up at a yard that might not be too close to where it was originated from, right? So it's all over the United States, but we're seeing that continually grow, and we're seeing more demand for it. We're also seeing more interest from customers that we don't have wanting to talk to us, because it's a difficult business, right? You have to pick up the car from a yard, and you have to make sure it's operable. You have to make sure there's keys, and then take it to the auction for sale. So we're seeing that's one of the most interesting things we're seeing. We're also seeing individual dealers sell more highline cars outside of their PMA. And what do I mean by that? It used to be, for a couple of years, you put anything nice on the showroom lot, you had 1-2% interest, 3% interest. There was this craze. It was gone. It was sold. Now we're seeing a little bit more. And I don't have hard information, but anecdotal. I'm saying, hey, that car just got shipped 2 states. It's a $100,000 car. This car is being shipped over there. This car is being shipped over there. It's not as easy to find the buyer just to walk in the showroom floor.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? I'm paying more interest. Let me dispose of this car anywhere, even at a lower price, even if it's out of state, if I have to maybe, subsidize some shipping, just so I can get it off my books and, move the metal.
Well, if you have a $100,000 car and you're thinking about your flooring costs and you think about the risk there, what's, maybe $1,500 to send it, 6-7 states away.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense.
Yeah. So we're seeing that.
Wow. So now, and then in terms of just broader demand, what are you seeing there? Are you seeing that your demand, versus last year, is it growing, declining? How are you looking? How are you seeing that?
Yeah. So, in 2021, 2022, we grew 100% year over year for 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. We're seeing, pretty good growth this year, not at that same scale. We'll probably see 100% growth next year and beyond that. I think what's happening is you have this reduction in driver base, right? A lot of them have left the business during COVID. You don't have as many young people going in, so you need to have better optimization tools. You're also seeing more as EVs come on, right? So whether it's Rivian, whether it's Fisker, obviously Tesla, Lucid, they are taking up more transportation because they have more deliveries to people's homes too. They also have more deliveries that they pick up cars and take them to different locations. So you're seeing.
So they're working with you for transport?
A few of them are, yeah. Mm-hmm. Because we do a lot of the home deliveries, right?
So you're saying that pretty much the whole direct to consumer model is, great for your business, especially, obviously when these players use you.
Yeah, it is. It's really good for our business. I think, it's good for the the OEM as well. There's a good experience. People like getting their new car delivered to their home. They like having that experience. So it works out really well. But that's also taking up capacity, right? You're now adding this to an industry that's already challenged with delivering cars. You're adding all these home deliveries on top of it. And that's an expectation, right? We also have to think about the demographics. So the younger people get more involved in car buying, right? They might buy a car that gets delivered to the house. They might use a subscription model, right? You were talking to Scott at Autonomy. We moved from Autonomy's cars, right? So there's subscription models that also take up transportation because those cars get shipped to the person's house or they get moved around the US as well. So we're seeing the market grow as well.
Do we still have a transporter shortage?
I think there's enough transporters. There's probably a couple pockets of geography that there might not be enough, right? What I do think is we've got to do a better job of optimizing. I say this, right? It's like, you and I fly around a lot. I'm getting on a plane later today. Those planes are always full. They come back full. They never stop unless they're waiting for a crew. But if we go transport, or I should say truck drivers and automotive, some of the hardest working people, keep their trucks full. Give them the loads that they need to. When they're driving back, don't let them drive back empty if they don't want to. Fill their trucks. If they can take 9 cars, give them 9 cars.
So how do you do that? Like, what's the secret sauce here?
So one of the things that we really focus on is optimization. I think in actually, we've been able to map the routes of drivers, right? And so we can see where they're going at any time, right? And it's anonymized. We don't really know, it's not for tracking purposes, but we have the ability in the app to say, hey, they're like buzzing in the app. There's a car 25 miles to the left of you that's going the same direction you are going. And it's going to pay $300 if you pick it up right now. We see that you generally drive down 95 from Florida to New York, and we happen to have a car just off 95 right now. Would you like it? We do that at scale. We do that across the United States. That's been kind of one of our biggest value adds. We also are working right now on, we're going to announce it internally in a couple of weeks with ChatGPT-4 and AI. We collect all this data. So now we're able to say, this is the right transporter for this job programmatically.
What would make a transporter right? Is it just like the most profitable, the most efficient? What?
Where he is, right? So here's the hardest thing. I don't know. So you take Uber Freight, you take Convoy for the most part, right? Or even Uber Lyft, you have short runs or you're going between 2 major destinations. If you're going to ship a car tomorrow, I don't know where you're going to ship it to till I get the order. So it's extremely difficult. If you decide to ship it to Topeka, Kansas, we'll do it. Try to find someone to take a 5,000-pound car. You want it gone in the next couple of days, gone safely, registered, drive through the heartland of the US. It's difficult, right? There's guys that do it, but you need to know how to find them.
What's the biggest challenge facing RunBuggy over the next couple of years?
I think one of the thing is continuing the scale, right? We're taking on more and more verticals. So today, we do B2B, B2C, C2B, and C2C, right? We're also starting with several companies on finished vehicle logistics. So as an organization, we think we're the only transportation company that covers the entire gamut. What I mean, we do home deliveries, right? We do home pickups, we do finished vehicle logistics. It's building software that's extensible and scalable for all of them, whether you're the largest OEM in the world, or whether you're an individual that just is going to go on a long vacation, wants to move your car with you. Same platform.
But what percentage of your business is just consumers?
The consumer business is growing, and not in terms of VINs, but in terms of dollars, because the average consumer move we have is about $1,200, right?
Mm-hmm.
The average off-lease repo move we have is about $300. And so you have this almost 4-to-1 ratio that you have. So, today,
and my guess there is that go ahead.
No,
I'm just going to ask. So
business,
why is that though?
Why is what?
Is it because like the auction, the repo just goes right to an auction that's very close to it, local?
Look, are you going to ship your car 150 miles? No, you probably drive it. You're going to get someone to drive it. You might drive and take an Uber back even, right? Are you going to ship your car from Pittsburgh to California? there's a good chance you might.
Got it. So that's that like inflection point where a consumer says, "Hey, I'll use transport," and it happens to be a higher ticket item.
It's almost inverse for everyone else saying, "Hey, we're going to sell it within our area. We're going to take it to the closest auction. Why would we move it?" Right? Although that is happening a little bit because going back to the case of the 4Runner, a salt-free California 4Runner might be worth more in your area than it is in California.
Mm,
Right. So we're seeing
makes sense.
some people do that because if you can have instant value or instant buying and we do instant guaranteed pricing on transportation, you know exactly the price then.
When you say instant guarantee pricing, like, so you tell me right away how much I'm going to pay, and you haven't confirmed it yet on your end? Like,
Yeah,
do you take risk from that?
we've done enough, I'll call it enough math, right? Enough
Yeah,
research that we instantly price it and we guarantee it. We won't change it on you.
that's good.
So it can be an oversized car, it can be a motorcycle,
Makes
it
sense.
can be an AEV.
Yeah, my assumption is that the variance there is probably not that great. So, the customer experience benefits definitely outweigh the potential costs,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
it
Well,
seems like
look,
it makes sense.
sometimes we mess up, right? Because it's any address to any address, and that goes to the database, and we take a look at it, and we refactor that pricing.
Incredible. So, I mean, thinking like 5-10 years out, right? Where is RunBuggy? What does this look like?
Yeah. So look, I think one of my goals, our investors' goal, the team's goal, right, is we really want to create a recognized brand in automotive shipping. I don't think we're ever going to be a brand that people are, hey, sitting around the coffee table talk about who did you use to ship your car, right? But I I think there is a need for a major brand that does most of the shipping, right? I also think that transporters and the guys that move and gals that move the cars, they deserve to have a really good app. They deserve to get paid quickly. They deserve to get paid at fair wage. They deserve all of this, right? I think they're some of the hardest working people. We want to kind of extend that commonality, right? One of the things that we're doing, and I think this is part of our 5-year plan, is we also have software that we sell now. So in November of last year, we launched a product called Hitch, which is our transport management system, right? That what we said, we took a step back and we said, hey, all this software we built, which is task management and workflow, why not we just give it to someone else too? Because it's built really for scale.
You really are the spiffy of auto transport. It's exactly what
That's
Scott
why
was mentioning on last.
I listen to your podcast to look, hey, what should I do next?
I
Right.
love it.
And
I mean, it makes total sense. You build all this great technology. Well, great. Let me license it, or
yeah,
leverage it in other
license
ways.
it, right?
Makes total sense.
And the unique part is when we license it, they're still using the RunBuggy app, but they're using it for their own assets. Right.
Mhm.
So they have their own drivers, maybe their own valet, their own porters, right? They're putting them on there. We've got 1,000 rooftops in the pipeline. We have the largest, not Mannheim, but the other largest consignor auction footprint in North America that's rolling it out right now. Right. We'll be also putting out a press release for a company in UK and Ireland, and we'll have opportunities in Mexico and Canada as well.
We planning an IPO?
Not yet. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think, even though, there's still a lot to be done. The market is still massive. I think, like I said, we're excited about 2024. I'm not sure if the pandemic was a wrinkle or a blessing in disguise yet. I think time will tell, right? From a pure technology perspective.
Yeah.
It's taught us a lot of lessons, and I think that's something we need to figure out.
I want to backtrack to one point you made. You mentioned just EVs, the impact of that.
You had to go
a
back.
few other things. I had to go back. What you got?
Yeah. So it impacts our business in a positive way, right? But I think it's not just about us. I think there's a positive message here, right? So I think what's come out of it, people are accepting to have their car picked up or delivered to wherever they choose, whether it's their home, like you said, rightly, it's about convenience or time. There is a realization, though, from some of these pure EV players that, hey, when a car does break down, you have to take it somewhere, right? In the case of some of them outside of Tesla, they don't have a lot of service centers yet. It has to be towed. They also have to have, they don't have the dealer lots. The dealers do a phenomenal job, right, of storing cars and holding cars. Where do you put sometimes the inventory as you're building it, right? So that means more shipping and quicker shipping and marshaling yards. So from our perspective, it has been a positive impact. I do think, EV adoption is going to grow from what we see, right? We see people always very excited. I personally drive an R1T, right? I've had it for about 14 months now. It's an amazing car, right? And I'm a huge car guy, right? I can go on and on and on and on forever. But at the same time, right, I always wonder, like, hey, if something happens, where do I take it to? Right? There is one facility about 20 miles north of me. So I think there's going to be more need for specialized transport, quicker transport in the future. Right? You don't have Rivian, Lucid, Fisker, VinFast locations all over the United States.
Dude, you guys are going to be a massive company.
Maybe.
Not that you're not huge already, but it seems like a no-brainer. This is what I was referring to in the beginning when I said like a simple idea, not actually the execution of it, but it's like, right, like food delivery, like simple idea, DoorDash, Uber, like, yeah, of course, let me hail a ride, like simple idea. It's the simple ideas that, when done right, when properly executed, are just, bring so much value to the everyday person.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think we keep focusing on, or I keep focusing on, I want to make it as much as possible an easy and relatively enjoyable task. Like, no one enjoys shipping their car, but let's make it something that we don't have to think twice about. And it doesn't matter who I am. If I'm an OEM, if I'm an individual, if I'm buying my dream car off of an auction site, just type in address to from, just like we do with Uber. We take it for granted, right? I think, is a truck going to show up in 5 minutes? Absolutely not, right? He might be there in a couple days or a day, depending on the route. Let's make it easy. Let's make it what we're used to.
I think you guys, the more I think about it, the more you have a similar problem as dealers, which is a challenge. The average person buys, one car every, 4 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Something along those lines, right? And so you sort of have to be there when they're ready, right? It's not like a, non-discretionary purchase that I make every week or every month, right? You have to be there when they're ready. When they're ready to buy that car, when they're ready to transport it, you need to be top of mind one way or another, or else you've lost that business potentially for years.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? So on the consumer side, we think there's about 2 million searches a year on how do I ship my car, right? So it's pretty big, and about 1 million private cars are shipped. If you go to the lenders, right, they put out multi-year RFPs. Right? One of the challenges in our business is participating in an RFP, winning that RFP, which can be a year sales cycle, and then executing on the RFP.
So for anyone in the audience that's not familiar with like the corporate proposal process, right? So these lenders put out RFP, request for proposal, right? It's like fancy explainer of what I'm looking for, and you come in and say, hey, I'll offer the service at X price, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. We'll offer the service. Here's the insurance. Here's our proposal. Here's our pricing. Here's our security. Here's the legally surround it, right? So that's also very daunting for a startup, right? We've had RFPs and contracts and MSFA that are over 30 pages long, right?
Wow.
Because if you remember, a lender is a bank. So we're essentially integrating with a bank.
Incredible. Kevin, any closing thoughts? Any other things I didn't ask you that you think the audience should know?
No, I think we covered quite a bit, right? I think the only thing that's kind of unique to us is we slightly separated our consumer brand. It's called RunBuggy One, right? So go to runbuggy1.com.
Who's the mastermind? Who's the mastermind behind all this branding work? I want to know. I want to meet this person.
Yeah, I think our head of marketing would like to say he is, but he's definitely influential. But one of the things I focus on as a leader is the senior team is the exact same senior team since day one, right? No one's left. We have no attrition. These guys, I value their input. They work hard, right? So it's usually a collaborative group. We get together a lot in person. I think if I had to coach, which I've done in the past, anyone else doing a startup, focus on your team, right? Startups are fun and cool, but if you don't have the right team, it doesn't go anywhere.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It sounds trite, but it's just the truth.
It is.
What we say,
surround yourself with guys like Steve Greenfield, who's on our advisory board, and talk to guys like Brad Parker, Private Auto. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw you guys just launched an integration with private auto.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, if I go down your podcast list and us, so you tell me who's next.
I should charge you for the client list.
You tell me who's next, I'll go talk to him, right? You'd be surprised. There's a couple on there that I probably shouldn't have mentioned that we're getting closer and closer to.
Well, we got Brett Morgan from Morgan Auto Group next. So I think that's a nice book of business right there. Brett, if you're listening, we got a good one for you.
Brett's a good guy.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin. Last but not least, where can people learn more about you, RunBuggy? Anyone that's interested?
Yeah. Reach out, through LinkedIn, reach out to me directly, runbuggy.com, our website. We are going to be at a ton of conferences coming up, right? We're actually in my hometown, Used Car Week. We're going to be a major sponsor there as well. And then listen to this podcast and send it to your friends.
I think you'll be surprised. Well, maybe you won't be surprised, but I'm going to be doing a fireside chat with Steve Greenfield at Used Car Week.
Okay.
I won't be there physically. I will be remotely. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a very fun conversation. So that's my little surprise for this podcast that I haven't spoken about or announced yet.
That's great. Well, we'll miss you. I think, we've got a panel with Steve also. So,
yep.
We'll have to meet up in person then.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, thanks so much for coming on. This was very interesting. I found it fascinating, especially the part about the leading indicators of the economy and what you mentioned. I mean, I think that's just, that's info that you have access to that, others don't, which I very fascinating. But thanks for sharing everything about RunBuggy, and just love to see what you guys are doing. Like I said, I have used it myself, terrific experience. Actually bought my wife's car from the group that invested in you early on. And so that's how that all worked out. I did ship a car across the country. And it worked out really great.
No, thanks for the time. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to chatting more.
Love it. We'll be in touch. Thanks, Kevin.
Bye-bye.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.